Well, hello there, and welcome back to Stories by Will. I am your host, Will, and today we're going to continue reading the six stories of Tile Ulenspiegle through the books Tales Told in Holland, last published in 1948. And today we're doing the last two stories, number 5 and number 6. The first one will be The Sea Beggars. As you remember, we talked about them on our last story. So we're going to get into that story now. But before we get started, if you would do all those YouTube Rumble things and hit the like and subscribe, I would really appreciate it. If you like the stories, please share them with friends and family. I'm really trying to get this channel to grow, and very important to me is I'd really like to replace some of these teeth that I have so I can speak a little bit better. So we're going to mumble and fumble our way through with the Sea Beggars. Right. At last, Tile and Lammy came to the heist on the dunes, and beheld a fleet of fishing boats that were come hither from Ostend and from Blankenberg and Flushing. Filled they were with men at arms and followers of the beggarmen of Zealand. Then Lammy and Ulenspiegel went aboard one of the ships, were carried to Amden, and thence to Waringen, where the ship was hemmed in by the ice. For by now it was the month of February. Against the gray, bright sky of skeletons of the trees stood out in motionless outline. Their branches were covered, as it were, with cushions of snow, and the roofs of the cottages likewise. Far and wide the fields were hidden under the wonderful white fleece. Now all around the ship there was to be seen the most joyous sight imaginable. Men all clad in velvet, sledding and skating on the ice, and the women skating too, with skirts and jackets bordered bordered with pearl and gold and blue and scarlet. And the boys and girls came and went hither and thither, laughing and following one another in line, or two by two in couples, singing the songs of love upon the ice, and running to eat and drink at the stalls decorated with flags, where one could buy all kinds of goodies, oranges and figs and eggs, and heat koken, that is to say, pancakes and hot vegetables flavored with vinegar. And all around them, the sailing sledges made the ice to resound under the pressure of the sharp runners. Then Tile cried out to Lammy. Oh, hold on just a second. I'm sorry. Mr. Morris is Mr. Morris doesn't want to listen to stories today. He wants to go hunting the birds a little bit. So then Tile cried out to Lammy, "What action! What commotion! What a lot of noise! My eyes are dazzled by it all. What crowds of boys! There comes Harmon Hogarth, faster than them all. He hooks a skate in the Nancy's, so the good girl takes a fall. There comes a frail boy Jerry, stumbling, skidding by. The poor boy's bunglers skating with all that tall Lizzie ride. I'm sorry for Blue Agatha, so very cold she grows. It's strange that no big icicles are hanging from her nose. How proud is Milius with his girl? They make a pretty pair. And dirty Mary slumps with her grandpa there. See all those little dried up men whizzing in a row? One behind the other, just like geese they go. There's Johnny, what you call him? He shoves in one push sled, his grandma, wife, and children, beside his Auntie Gred. Ah, how the farmer sleighs go here in every way. How our common folk and nobles all go sporting in the sleigh. When spring came once again, the beggarmen sailed away to join the fleet of the Mezar Lumi de la Marque, the Hog of Ardens, Admiral of Holland and Zealand. And on April Fool's Day, 1572, they played a joke on the haughty Spaniards, for they sailed up to the Braille at the mouth of the River Maas, and Braille surrendered to them, the first strong naval base to open its gates to the beggars. Now in the Flemish tongue, the word Braille signified spectacles, and to celebrate the event, the servants of laughter in the lowlands composed a ridiculous rhyme. When April Fool's Day comes to Bex, the Duke of Alba lost his specs. Hearing how the Iron Duke had lost his specs, the burghers of Flushing likewise drove the Spaniards from their town. Then Veer in Zealand, Enkhuizen, Alkmaar, Horn, Edam, Munkendam, Leyden, Gouda, Dordrecht, Haarlem, and many other cities had the courage to take the side of the prince and defy the power of Spain. And in solemn assembly united, the provinces of the Netherlands declared William of Orange to be the standholder of the land. So swept the resolute but fantastic band of beggars along the placid estuaries of Zealand, walking the quiet waters with their wild songs. And the sounds of the voices was like a growl of the thunder of deliverance. And Ulenspiegle sang, "Long live the beggars, loud beat the drum. The Braille has fallen, flushing to the key to Schelt. God is good, for Camp Veer is taken the place where the guns of all Zealand were stored. Now cannonballs, powder, and bullets are ours, bullets of iron, bullets of brass. God is with us. Who then is against us? The drum, beat the drum. Long live the beggarman, beat the drum." And now it was winter month, that is, the month of wolves. Rain fell in the water like sharp needles. The beggars were cruising on the Zuider Zee, and Ulenspiegle had become the commander of a vessel called the Braille, with Lammy risen to the glory of chief cook. Then the admiral said to Tile, "I have to tell you that the Spaniards of Amsterdam are planning to besiege Enkhuizen, but they have not yet left Amsterdam harbor, and we are going to cruise in front of the Y so that we can close it and attack every boat that dares to show its hull in the Zuider Zee." So the fleet left and cruised in front of Amsterdam, and no ship could enter or leave the harbor unless the beggars allowed it. On the fifth day, however, the rain stopped and the wind blew colder, but those of Amsterdam still gave no sign of action. Suddenly, Ulenspiegel saw his friend Lammy chasing a rascally cabin boy and waving his wooden spoon threateningly in the air. "Lammy," said Tile, "all is so quiet in Amsterdam. I fear they are up to something." "I was thinking of that," said Lammy. "The water is freezing in the jugs. The chickens are hard as wood. The sausages are white with frost. The butter is like stone. The salt is as dry as sand in the sun. That means we are going to have a freezing weather. Then the water about us will be ice, said Ulenspiegel, and the enemy can cross it by foot. Then will come in large they will come in large numbers with blunderbusses. Forthwith he was off to the admiral's ship to tell him of his fears. But the admiral would not believe Lammy had read the signs of the weather all right. Nevertheless, by sunset, the sea was frozen over, smooth as a floor. Then the admiral feared that those from Amsterdam would cross the ice and set fire to his ships. So he told the soldiers to keep their skates ready, in case they should have to fight, and he ordered the gunners to load the guns and keep the lamps burning. But those of Amsterdam did not come. Thus 7 days passed. Towards evening of the seventh day, Tile ordered that a good meal should be given to his men. But Lammy said, "We have nothing left to give them save hard tack. Who will go ashore with me and see some tasty provisions?" "We cannot go ashore," replied Tile. "The enemy might come." "Friend," said Lammy, "please remember that our last sausage was eaten yesterday. Now look at yonder lights ashore. They are those of a rich homestead, well stocked with large and small cattle. Do you know who lives there? It is that skipper, Sloos, who betrayed 18 of our innocent countrymen to the Spaniards so that they, by his fault, lost their heads. As the price of his treason, he received from the Duke 2,000 florins, and with his blood money he bought, like a rare Judas, the homestead which you see before you. Give me 20 brave men, and the traitor shall meet with justice. For my stomach says, mealtime." "I shall go myself," cried Tile. "Who is for justice? Follow me. Buckle up your skates and direct your way by yon bright star, which shines above the traitor's house. So come, friends, skating and gliding, with the ox on their shoulder, led by the glimmering light of the moon." Don't know what happened there. You still recording? Looks like it. Sorry about that. Having little allergies today. So let me go back to that line. So come, friends, skating and gliding, with the axe on your shoulder, led by the glimmering light of the moon. The wind whistles and blows up the snow. In a ghostly winding sheet, it swirls across the ice. Come, brave men. You neither sing nor talk. Silently you go, straight toward that star. Your skates are scratching the ice. Who falls? Arise at once. We are nearing the shore. Not a single human on the white snow, not a single bird in the icy sky. Take off your skates. And now we are near the house. Hold your breath. Ulenspiegle knocked on the door. The dogs barked. He knocked again. The window was open, and the farmer put out his head. "Who are you?" he cried. But he saw no one to save Tile, for the others were hidden behind the barn. "Monsieur Bouchot summons you to Amsterdam," said Tile. "Where is safe conduct?" Not sure what's going on with my computer here. "Where is safe conduct?" asked the farmer, appearing at the door. "Here," answered Ulenspiegel, pointing to the 20 bold beggars. "You are a traitor, Sloos. who caught our comrades in a trap. Where is the blood money that was paid you? Trembling all over, the farmer answered, I have no money in my house. All I have I will give you. But when the candles were lit and the beggarman stood near the fireplace, seized a flower pot, which was one of a row that adorned the shelf. Turning it upside down, he shook out a mass of ducats. There is the treasure, he said, pointing to the other pots. And verily, he spake the truth. For when the pots were emptied, the beggars counted 10,000 florin. Then the farmer began to cry and to weep, and his men servants and maid servants, hearing him howl, came running to him in their nightshirts. But the beggarman caught and bound the men servants who would have defended their master. And Lammy cried, Traitor! Where are the keys to your cellar, barn, and sheepfold? Impertinent thieves, shrieked the farm, you shall be hanged. Notwithstanding his howls, the beggars ransacked the farmhouse and seized what was needed for their men. Then they went skating back to the ships, the light hulls of freedom. I am the cook, cried Lammy, leading the way. I am the cook. Push the good sleds loaded with food. Drive with ropes the oxen, the pigs, and the sheep. The pigeons coo in their cages, and capons look troubled in their pens. I am the cook. The ice cracks under the skates. We near the ships. Tomorrow we ship. Tomorrow there shall be music. Music in kitchen. Let down the pulleys. Draw up the cows and the oxen. There go pork chops. Put them all in the hold. Ducks, capons, geese, hens. The door is locked. I am the cook. The key is in my pocket. The Lord be praised in our kitchen. Long live the beggarman. Thus there was feasting for the beggars, but even while they feasted, behold, black crowds long to the shore, shadowy forms with torches flashing and weapons gleaming among them. The admiral's orders were given on the instant. All fires were put out. Sailors and soldiers lay down on their stomachs, armed with axes. The cannoneers, with blunt in hand, were on guard near the blunderbosses. Do you hear? Said Tile to Lammy in a low voice, like the breath of a ghost. Do you hear the voices up from Amsterdam and their skates scratching on the ice? They go fast. You can hear them talk. They say, those lazy beggars are fast asleep. Ours is the treasure of Lisbon. Do you see their ladders and their ugly faces? Fire! Cried the admiral of the beggars. A sound was heard like thunder and loud cries on the ice. They run away, cried Tile. Pursue them, said the admiral. But the fugitives ran like rabbits. It was victory for the beggars. Still the admiral's heart was troubled, for the ice showed no signs of melting, and there might come another attack across that glistening floor. Then Lammy sprang to the deck and said to Tile, Take me to that admiral, who did not want to believe you when you told him there would be freezing weather. Go without being taken, said Ulenspiegle. So Lammy went up to the admiral. Monsieur Admiral, he said, may a humble cook tell you something? Speak, my boy, said the admiral. Sir, said Lammy, if the great scholars who pretend to be astrologers could read the stars as well as I can read my sauces, they would tell you that it's going to thaw tonight. The water is thawing in the jugs. The fowls are getting soft. The sausages lose its coat of white frost. The butter becomes soft. The salt damp. Soon the ice will melt, so no one can cross it. And we shall be safe, Sir Admiral. but you must sail away at once, for the thaw will not last." By evening his words came to pass, and loudly Lammy rejoiced. "The North Sea is high! The waves which enter the Zuyder Zee are breaking up the ice. See, in great pieces it explodes and falls against the ships. How it shines and glistens, and now there is water enough to float our large vessels. Our ship spreads its sails like the bird of freedom and makes for the open sea. Ho for the winds and the waves, and now we are safe in the port of Enkhuizen. The sea freezes again. We sailed just in time. I am a prophet, and it is the favor of the Lord." Then Ulenspiegle said, "We shall praise and thank him." And winter passed, and summer came, and the Spaniards laid siege to Alkmaar. 3 times they stormed the city, and 3 times they were driven back. Till at last they withdrew in sorry defeat from before those stubborn walls. Then there went out a cry throughout the Netherlands, "From Alkmaar begins the victory." And so it was. From Alkmaar began the victory. And Alba went back to Spain, and Requesens came to take his place. But the sea beggars took Middelburg in Zealand, and from under the very nose of the Requesens. Through the wild waves went the sea beggars, like lions through the wood. A winter passed, and the spring came once again. So that's going to move us on to our final story, number 6, the Siege of Leyden. Now it was May of the year 1574, and all eyes were turned toward Leyden. For in that year the Spanish general Valdez, who had laid siege to the city to none effect in the autumn before, appeared for a second time and occupied his old forts, which the burghers had failed to destroy. Then were the citizens of Leyden shut up once more within their own fortifications, with but a sorry supply of food, and not but a small corps of burgher guards as their defenders. Before them lay thousands of Spanish troops encamped upon the meadow. Around them rose 62 rebounds, bristling with cannon, all made ready to bombard the city walls. Little was in their favor, save that they had the burgomaster, that stout old rebel, Adrian van der Werf. In those dark days, the hope of van der Werf and his burghers lay in the justice of God and their tireless energy of William the Orange. Now, William could raise no army large enough to defeat the Spaniards on land. But over in the North Sea, he collected his fleet of beggars under command of Admiral Boyce, and Tile trode to the deck of his vessel, stood at heart, beholding clouds drifting gently by the sea, all blue and sparkling about him. And he cried aloud to Lammy, "O Lammy, behold the lovely month of May. Ah, the bright blue sky and the blue of the sea. On shore the flowers are blooming. The chaffinches are singing in the trees, and oh, the joy of the swallows. The very earth is in love, yet there is no love in the heart of the tyrant. His clutch draws closer about our necks. Our 2 largest cities, Amsterdam and Haarlem, are already in his hands. If Leyden likewise should fall, what would we keep our comrades from utter despair? They would lay down their arms and yield up with struggle. We dare not let Leyden fall. On Leyden depends the salvation of Holland. But Lammy answered, Long live the Prince of Orange, the friend of our country. Under his command we shall yet carry bread and sausage to Leyden. Nevertheless, between the fleet and Leyden lay 15 miles of rich Dutch metal over which swarmed the Spanish host. How was William of Orange to get the food through the enemy lines and into the starving city? Month after month went by. The burghers were grimly enduring. Day by day, men, women, and children crept like shadows along the street. By the still canal, in the peaceful shade of the trees, they wended their way up to the Hengist hill, atop which stood an ancient tower, the only high spot in the city. From there they could look out across the fields and strain their eyes in hopes of catching some glimpse of relief coming out of the distance. What ho! They cried to the watchman on the tower. Do you see help coming? A month and month after month the watchman could only answer, I see naught but the enemy in the meadows below. Then there was dull booming of a cannon without, and pitiless hunger within. And in those days William of Orange said, Have we not men enough to drive the Spaniards out of the land and bring succor to starving Leyden? Sorry, I'm getting tongue-tied. Then the sea itself shall come to rescue. Cut the dikes and let in the waters over the meadows. Forthwith the dikes were cut. Ah, the sea had many times seen the enemy to the people of the lowlands. They and their fathers, for generations before, had labored to force it back behind the dikes and wrest its grasp from their rich, low-lying green meadows. Yet now they looked at it as a friend, and they cut the dikes and invited it in, careless what it should do to the meadows if only it brought up the ships to Leyden. But alack, it was still summer season, the season of calm and sunshine, and though the dikes were broken through, no storm wind came with a giant hand to hurl the waters over the land. Only little pools drifted gently in and lay peacefully on the meadow. Nevertheless, carrier pigeons flew into Leyden and bore to Adrian van der Werf and his people that magic message from William. We have cut through the dikes. From every lip in Leyden went up a shout of thanksgiving. There's somebody over in Rumble. I'm sorry I can't see you because of the way I'm set up right now. I really appreciate you being here. So I shall continue. From every lip in Leyden went up the shout of thanksgiving. When the wind should blow strongly enough for the north and the west, the sea would rise, plunge over the broken dikes, and then, then, a thunderous, all-powerful, watery giant would come to the rescue of Leyden. Now, the good folk of Leyden climbed to the top of the Hengist hill with real reason to hope. Watchman, watchman, what see you now? Is the sea rising? But it was a long and weary time still that the watchman answered, I see only puddles in the fields far off nearest the sea. Sometimes the wary watcher beheld in the sky the rosy reflections of bonfires as some distant village illuminated itself with flames to honor the progress of the fleet. Sometimes they heard far off the booming of guns, but time passed and no help came. Hope began to die. Patience was tried to its utmost. Horses, dogs, cats, and rats, and buried grass by the roadside. And this was the food of the people of Leyden, and even this was failing. Then Adrian Vanderwolf went about among the burghers, trying to fire their faith anew, and kept warm the embers of hope. But there came a day when their courage fell to the lowest ebb. Dull of eye, they crowded together about their burgomaster. Give up the city, they said. We can hold out no longer. Then the staunch old Dutchman, standing haggard but imposing beneath two ancient lime trees at the foot of the tall brick tower of St. Pancras Church, waved his broad-brimmed hat and cried, "Give up the city? Never! Take my body and eat it if you will, but I shall not give up the city." Brave words, old Adrian Vanderwerf, and hunger, more powerful than hunger or cannon. The burghers of Leyden, sublime in their despair, spurned the summons to surrender and set themselves anew to the terrible task of waiting. Every eye turned wistful with each new day toward the weather vanes on the steeples. When would the wind change and blow in their saviors, the sea? But at last, a slow creeping autumn came. From the deck of his vessel, Kyle now beheld that the clouds went racing like mad things over the sky, while out at sea the wild, white crest came surging upon the waves. And one day the burghers of Leyden rose to find that the wind had changed. In the air was a strong salt smell of the sea. Great was the excitement within the walls, and the watchers thronged to the Hengist hill. From there they could see their deliverer coming. The distant puddles grew into ponds. The ponds widened and joined themselves into shallow lake. And then came night and the tempest. The sky was black with clouds. The wind raged and howled. The trees groaned and crackled. From the direction of the sea came an ominous murmur that slowly grew and swelled to a roar. There it came, the sea, the mighty sea, a huge black wall of water, rolling, crashing, thundering. Over field and meadow it surged, washing all away that stood in its path, straight up to the walls of Leyden. In the darkness light were seen in the Spanish camp. Wild, confused cries were heard as the Spaniards awoke their fancied security to see what was upon them. Early in the morning of the 3rd day of October, a small Dutch boy, straining his eyes in the dim gray light toward the largest of the Spanish fort, saw that it seemed deserted. Making his way across watery meadows, he crept up along to the fortification, and there he found to his joy that it was as he had supposed. The enemy had fled. In wild exultations, he waved the news to his friends within the city. And what else did he find within the deserted camp? Still hanging above the embers of the smoldering fire, he found a brass pot full of savory stew, potatoes, carrots, onions, and meat. Hut spot, what a feast for starving burghers! Sound the pipes, pipes of joy for the savory stew of Hotspot. And when dawn had progressed to broad daylight, lo, the people of Leyden saw sailing toward them in motley array the vessels of the burghers. Straight over the fields of Holland they sailed, where the day before had only been green meadows. Excuse me. Amid half submerged trees and chimney stacks, on they came and on. And Ulenspiegle was there with Lammy too, and great was their joy and excitement. Now many of King Philip's troops had been washed away by the flood, but some had taken to any rude craft they could find and were floating about in the water. These Tile and his comrades overturned and sent sprawling back into the sea. So at last the Spaniards were put to rout. Along the road of the Hague, in the wildest disorder, they fled. Long live the beggarmen, cried the burghers of Leyden, and opened their gates and with shouts of joy, that the conquering fleet might sail up to the canals and into the very city. Beneath the high arched stone bridges, past rows of red brick houses, whose windows shone with welcome, the vessels glided along, whilst the beggars threw loaves of bread to the crowds of the famishing people. There, on the deck of his ship, stood Tile distributing food, and there too stood Lammy, in his white cook's apron, throwing bread and herrings to the people. And he sighed for sympathy of their sorrow, and laughed for joy of their deliverance. And what with singing and laughing, he found himself so unhungered that he needs must exercise all his virtue not to consume a single crumb of the precious food himself. Now, when the last vessel had entered the gates, Admiral Boycott, from the deck of his flagship, the Ark of Delft, spake a few words to the people. Then, in reverent company, he and the beggars and the sturdy burghers under Adrian Vanderwerf marched down to the Breed Strat, to the great cathedral, to render thanks to God. Burghers, beggars, and burghers, they joined their voices together, and there came pealing forth from the church of the mighty roll of the organ, the thunder of Luther's hymn, and the powerful surge of the sea. A mighty fortress is our God, a bulwark never failing, our helper he amid the flood of mortal ills prevailing. By sea, by river, in fair weather and foul, through snows of winter and summer's heat, the ships of the beggarmen sailed before the breeze. Full bellied was their canvas, and white as the dawn of swans, white swans of liberty. And it came to pass in the year of our Lord's grace, 1581, that the States General of the 7 northern provinces, Holland, Zeeland, Utrecht, Gelderland, Groningen, Friesland, and Overijssel, declared themselves forever free from Philip of Spain. And here began the Republic of the United Netherlands, with William of Orange as stateholder of the land. And king he might, had he willed, but he did not, but so he did not will. The land which he had set free from the king of Spain shall be land free indeed. It shall not bear against the heavy weight of a crown. He would not be a king. Then came the season of harvest, when they who had sowed their able, let me read that again. This is written kind of weird. Then came the season of harvest, when they who had sowed were able to reap in peace beneath the free sky and from the free soil, the corn which they had planted. And Lammy and Tile laid down their arms, and Tile was made governor of the Tower of Veer in Zealand, and was given the allowance of a florin a day, with a ration of beans, cheese, and biscuits, and 3 pounds of beef a week. From the height of his tower, which stood at the mouth of the harbor, he looked out over the free isles of Zealand, having joy to see his feet, the beautiful city of Veer, with the tall, graceful spire of its town hall, like a slender minaret, and the plain gray pile of its huge old church, and the gables of its houses, all gilded in the sun. And he watched with the eyes of an eagle and the ears of a hare that the Spaniards should never dare show their face again in the land that had been before, that had been forever set free from his cruel and galling yoke. And that brings us to the end of our last story of Tile. So 1581 began the 7 providences of Holland that live until this day. So I'm going to bring this to the end. It's been about 42 minutes, and I'm very sorry for the interruptions. And if you heard some of the cars, Mr. Morris decided to go bird watching instead of being co-host here again today. But he's a happy boy, so all's good. I really appreciate you watching. If you enjoyed the story, again, someday in the future, I'll probably reread these so that it's not just a cold read like I'm doing today. Like I said, it's been over 50 years since I've read these stories. Please grab the like and subscribe. And if you like the stories, share them with friends and family. Help me grow this channel. I would really appreciate that. So on this merriest of days, Christmas Day, Merry Christmas to you, to all of my Christian friends. Happy holidays to all of my non-Christians. Doesn't matter what your religion is or if you are religious or not. Today is a day of love. God bless. We'll see you on the next stream.